Today I'm going to take you through how to train the press handstand. So today is going to look at the straddle press handstand, but the same ideas can be used for the tuck or the pike. We need to break it down into these elements. So mobility, how much mobility do you have? What's usable, because that's going to affect the rest of them. What your balance is like currently and what you need to do to make it better. Again, that's going to affect the drills that you need to do or that you're capable of doing. We need to make sure that we're training the pathway. For most people, that's going to need to be both concentric exercises, things like partial range press handstand, and then we use the eccentric either freestanding or against the wall to get a full range of motion, slow, controlled movement. We need to condition that bottom position of the press handstand, and then obviously we need to do the same for the top, but that should be covered by the other things. And the top being the freestanding headstand. Okay, now let's break them down a little bit more detail. So mobility, we need to have a certain amount of forward fold. So how far forwards I can get this way. So how close can my hands get to the floor? If you look like this in this position, we're gonna need to use a lot more strength to press up in our handstand. But if you have really good flexibility, it's gonna look very different when we do the press handstand. So making sure you have a deep forward fold or you're improving it, it's just gonna make the press handstand more efficient and easier to do. So you wanna be working on your flexibility in your forward fold and also your straddle pancake position. Now that can be done in a standing position, so like this, or the most common way of doing it and to get the quickest results is doing some sort of straddle good morning position. Now if you're not so flexible in this one, we will need to raise the hips up higher. Sitting up on a box doing your straddle good mornings and just hanging out in this position. I'd highly recommend sitting in this position on a daily basis when you're playing with the kids, when you're playing Xbox, when you're working on your laptop. Visiting these positions every day is the quickest way to get a usable range for your press training. Next, handstand balance. This is something we need to constantly improve and something we need to get better and better at. It's not just in this position. So when we're here, it's all the way through the press handstand range. So if I'm in this position, I want to be showing balance there. If I'm not balanced, I'm going to have to use strength to fight the position, which is just going to use up loads and loads of energy, and it means that the press handstand is going to be very inefficient if you can get it, or it probably means you're not going to be able to get the press handstand. Now, if your balance isn't fantastic, we want to be working your back to wall balance for overbalance, so kicking up, pushing tall, pushing through the fingers, learn to pull from the wall and go back again, first for repetitions, and then for hold time. We want to do the same for the underbalance, so turning around chest to wall and then using the shoulders to pull forwards and get this underbalance control like so. So again, you could do repetitions to start with and then go for holds in that position. If you're scared, if you're not confident in that position, get someone to stand here, but you definitely need to train that underbalance and that overbalance, make that top of the handstand nice and controlled. And then what it does mean is when you're going for your press handstand drills, you're probably gonna have to use the wall for support to get quality reps, quality time under tension, because if not, you're gonna be fighting for balance constantly and you're gonna be falling around all the time instead of getting quality working sets. Next, let's look at the pathway. So the pathway is from the top position all the way down to the bottom with control, or from the bottom all the way up to the top with control. Now, if you can do the bottom up like this and do it controlled, you can already press handstand, so we won't be having this conversation. So in reality, most people are going to have to split this between eccentrics and concentrics and do something for both. Now, the reason we need to do something for both is most people are going to have a gap on the concentric. So what that means is if you're doing a partial range drill, so I'll show the version where we need to use the wall for a little bit of balance. So here, I use a partial range and then go up to my handstand using the wall at the top. Now that's a fantastic concentric exercise because it's going up. I can change the height depending on my level and slowly take it closer to the floor as I progress. But the issue is that I have a gap. This gap is not being trained. So I need to fill that gap with the eccentric. So that's why we do a separate exercise that concentrates on the down from the top, ideally freestanding all the way. But if you need the wall support, we'll go against the wall, slowly down, peel off the wall, through the low back, through the mid back, through the upper back, until tiptoes touch the floor. So that way, there was no gap going through the full pathway, but the downside of that was it's the eccentric, it's the down phase. We need to train the concentric as well. So doing something for the concentric, partial range, and something for the eccentric is really important. Other options are jump to handstand. So now I'm using momentum to go through the concentric, and then I'll do a slow eccentric on the way down. So you could argue there, I'm doing concentric work and full range of motion eccentric. Next, we need to look at the bottom of the press handstand. Now this one's really, really important to get that magic lift off where the toes start to float. Now the simplest way to look at this one is we're going to use two objects. So this one, the peg, and this one, the is going to demonstrate our position and how close we are to the float. So this is going to be the back of the palms. So when I place my hands down on the floor, I'm going to be there. This one is going to show me where my hip crease is. So if I'm in this position like that, this is really good if I get someone to help and look where my hip is, or I can go like this and video from the side and then watch the video back. I want to see where my hip crease is. So here, relevant to this one. As soon as I can move this piece so it gets closer to being on top, my toes are going to get lighter. And as soon as this hip crease here gets on top of this one, so like that, that's where my toes are going to come off the floor. So that's the magic point that we're aiming for. So we can hang out in that bottom position, both in like planchy positions where I'm going to use strength to do it and I have to take my body that way a lot. Or if I have more flexibility, I can stack better. I need to planche less and I can get into that sweet spot where the toes start to float. So positioning is number one, making sure that this can get on top, and then conditioning is number two. Being strong there, being able to hang out there, being able to hold a conversation while you've got that hip on top of there. That's going to take time and repetition. And then we have the top position. Now the top position is your balance position. It's the top of your concentric rep. It's whenever you're hanging out in that top position. So I would just make sure that you're doing enough time under tension or time in position to tick this one off. A good way of doing it, or a good way of looking at it, is with the concentric partial range, is when I get to the top of the movement. So once I get to here, I'm going to hang out in this position and show control. What I don't want to be doing is going up and falling out straight away and not spending any time there. If I need to use the wall, I can use the wall, but I just need to spend time there with control and slowly condition and make that stronger. And then once you can do one repetition, go for repetitions. Here's 10. Now I have separate videos on all of these. I have tutorials and detailed programs within my app. I also offer online coaching. Visit www.paultwyman.com.au for the coaching option and the app details. Let me know down below if you have any questions. Thumbs up and subscribe will be appreciated, and I'll speak to you in the next one.